Hi, I'm Caroline with SewCanShe.com, and I'm here to share with you a review of my sewing machine. It is the Janome 14,000 Horizon Memory Craft, Janome Horizon Memory Craft 14,000, or just my Janome. I bought this machine almost a year ago, and I did a quick unboxing video at the time, but now I'm going to do a more complete review of the things that I love about this sewing machine, the things that I have learned to live with the sewing machine, which you'll have to with any sewing machine or anything you buy. Um, Now, first of all, I bought this sewing machine, the 14,000. It is very similar to the 15,000, which is the top of the line that Janome makes right now. But it was a few $1,000s less because it does not have the built-in Bluetooth enabled that lets you connect to an iPad or your computer through Bluetooth, or maybe just iPad. I'm not sure. It wasn't in my budget to buy that complete top of the line machine. And when I talked to a saleswoman, she explained to me that this machine has all the same embroidery features, all the same sewing features. Basically, it's the same machine. It just doesn't have that wireless connection ability, which is great because I wasn't expecting that anyway. I didn't expect a machine that came with a free iPad, which that one sometimes does, or mini iPad. But I love it just the way it is. So I saved myself a couple $1,000s, and I believe you can only buy this machine online, or if you have a dealer close to you, you can ask the dealer to order it for you. But they don't generally have it on display. And also, if you go to the Janome website, you have to type in this search for 14,000 Janome Horizon Memory Craft 14,000. It doesn't always just pop up in the list of available machines. But I totally suggest that you do if you're in the market for a high quality top of the line machine, which is this is just almost top of the line for Janome. So I'll start with the things that I love. First of all, I love the needle threading. So I unthreaded my machine here so I can show you. I'm just going to thread it through the machine here as if you would normally, and then here cut the thread. And then I'm going to here lock the machine and do a little needle threading, and it's all threaded. It's ready to go. I love it. Love it. Then I just have to hit the little unlock button, and we are ready to sew. In case the screen looks kind of funny to you, it looks funny to me on the computer. It's because the refresh rate here on the screen is different from the refresh rate of my webcam. So it looks completely normal. I don't see any flashing or anything weird here when I look at it, just FYI. Okay, next thing that I love about this machine is I love the dual feed foot. This is the wide dual feed foot. I will take it off so that I can show it to you more closely. This foot is great for sewing lots of layers. For example, bag making or quilting. It's because the foot actually moves too along with the feet dogs, so you get the layers will move more evenly. So this is the large dual feed foot, and the foot is actually removable, so I can take off this part and I can put on, for example, this one is for quilt piecing, and it has the little guide here to help you get a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So when you have this foot, I'm going to put it back on now, when you have this foot on your machine, it will, you have to tell it that it is using the dual feed foot, and then it will work properly. And now I'm going to install the dual feed foot for quilt piecing. So I will tell the machine that I'm using a dual feed foot, and it will remind me to put the right holder on. And then there's actually a setting for quilt piecing. So I'm just going to go in right here to patchwork, and then it moved the needle over a tiny bit, and it would be set to sew a perfect 1/4 inch seam, except that I like to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam. Imagine that. So I previously went into this favorite stitch bar, and I moved the needle over a tiny bit more towards the guide so it will sew a scant 1/4 inch seam, and I saved that setting. So now every time I open it up to do patchwork, it's going to, with the dual feed foot on, it's going to set it up perfectly for this. Now there is also, so this foot, the one that does the piecing with the dual feed, it comes with the sewing machine. And I wanted to show you another one I love. It is a stitch in the ditch, which I use this sometimes for stitch in the ditch, but I also love to use this for sewing on binding. So this one does not come with a machine, but it's not very expensive to buy it. So that's great. Now, say you want to just do regular sewing with a regular foot. It comes with the regular foot, of course. At this point, I love the dual feet so much that I often just use the regular foot holder when I want to do like embroidery, and not embroidery, but decorative stitches. And I will use the open toe foot to do decorative stitches, and I use that on the regular shanks. So that is great. And also, if I was sewing, for example, a zipper or something narrow, it also came with a narrow dual feed foot. So there's two dual feed feet that come with this sewing machine. Here's the narrow dual feed foot, and it also has a removable little foot here on the holder. And I have, for example, a zipper foot that I can connect to my narrow dual feed foot to sew zippers on things that get tricky, like tote bags or zipper pouches, or even clothing. Now the invisible zipper foot goes with the regular, not the dual feed shank, but it's wonderful. I mean, you don't need to use dual feed, but it's great that it's there, and I have so many different ways that I can use it. So I love that. And you see I have this little box here that opens and closes where I can keep my my little feet and accessories. Now also, I wanted to show you, so this comes off, and I can have a free arm, and what you see, okay, I have a free arm right here, and what you see back here is the embroidery module. This is removable, you can take it off, but it's also not all that bothersome to just leave it on, and so it's kind of like extends the table back a little bit, and it doesn't bother me to sew with it most of the time. Another feature that I love about this sewing machine is that it's really easy to change the needle plate. You just push this button right here, and here I'm going to take off my straight stitch needle plate. Now this is a straight stitch, and it also comes with a needle plate that can be used for the decorative stitches, which has a little spot in here. And this has the wider opening for doing zigzag or the overcast stitch or any of the hundreds of decorative stitches. Most of the time I am quilt piecing, and because of that, I use my straight stitch foot. And the reason why is that it has just a smaller hole for the needle to go through, which a lot of times you will find that when you are sewing just a couple thin layers of fabric, the points of the fabric when you start sewing will go deep down and get caught in the feed dogs, and of course you don't want that. And that's because the opening is so large. This does a 9mm zigzag, which is huge, which is really awesome when you want to do a big wide zigzag, a big wide satin stitch. But if you're just quilt piecing and you go straight, you don't want the tip of your triangles or your squares to go down in that hole. So here, there, I put back on my straight stitch needle plate, and the sewing machine knows that that's what's attached, so it's not going to let me do a zigzag and break my needle. So I'm going to show you here. So that was, I got ahead of myself. That was one of the things that I've learned to deal with on this machine, is that when I'm sewing tiny things like these little corners, sometimes if I don't use a leader, the point will get caught even with a straight stitch, and that's normal. That will happen with any machine. But let's see if it happens now. I just put a little triangle to make a half square triangle in here, and I'm just going to start sewing. Oh, it didn't get caught. It's perfect. So there we go. I just sewed a half square triangle. I'm going to hit the scissors button. It will cut the threads, lift the foot for me, and I've got a perfect little half square triangle. And here I was sewing on the bias, but that's another reason why I love the dual feed foot, is sewing pieces on the bias just goes nice and smooth with the dual feed. I'm not saying you have to have a dual feed foot to sew your quilt pieces together, but if your machine does that, it's lovely, right? So, and here it was in a patchwork mode. So it remembered how long I stitched, and it is asking me if I'm going to sew another piece the same size or just keep going. If I ignore this and just keep going, it won't sew the same distance again. But if I hit OK, it will sew the same distance and then stop, as if I was sewing 100 pieces exactly the same, which is an interesting feature. And I'm just going to hit X out of that. So let's move on. I love this machine for straight line quilting. I've done a ton of that. That is now my favorite way to finish my quilts. I do that all the time. I use the dual feed foot, and there is a bigger acrylic table that came with it. You can see it in my unboxing video. And so I get that out of the closet and I put it on. I have to take off the embroidery module, but I take that out of the closet and put it on whenever I do my straight line quilting. It gives me a nice big area. So that's brilliant. The next thing is embroidery. So it's super easy to start embroidery on this machine. I just hit go into, let's see here. I go into switch modes, and it told me that the carriage arm is not open, which I didn't open it. So here I'm just going to open the carriage arm, and kind of hits the shades back there. So usually I will like pull the machine a few inches forward on my table, and it fits just fine. So I'll hit OK, and now the arm starts to move, and it's wonderful. One thing I will tell you, it's super easy to set up. I'm not gonna start the embroidery right here, but I had never owned an embroidery machine before I bought this, and I really bought this because I wanted a high-end, high-performance sewing machine to do clothing and to do quilts, which it does that without any problem. Love it. But I didn't, the embroidery just came with it. And I was like, well, I'll try embroidery. And I love it. So I started doing embroidery and fell in love. And I have made wall quilts. I have made dish towels. I have made pin cushions. You name it, I have attempted it on this machine, and everything has turned out beautiful. So I totally love it, and I have fallen in love with embroidery in addition to sewing and quilting since I bought this machine. So one more thing, I promised you I'd mention something else that I was not completely happy with, and it's not really this machine's fault. I showed you at the beginning the fancy needle threader, and the needle threader has this tiny little wire, which that's what all machine needle threaders have. So I was sewing with some, I think, tri-lobal thread. It was the Elo Flex stretch thread, which is awesome thread to use if you don't have a serger and you want to sew with knits. I do recommend that thread, but I was using it and I used my automatic needle threader, and one little strand in the thread, it's several fibers twisted together, and one of those strands got caught on the wire, and I wasn't patient with it. I just kind of yanked it, and I bent the wire on the needle threader, and then it didn't work. But I talked to a technician, and he was like, oh yeah, no big deal, you don't even need a new part, I can fix it for you. So I did get it fixed, and then my needle threader worked again, and it didn't even require new parts. And of course the machine was under warranty for a year. So that said and done, I probably don't recommend using an automatic needle threader on any machine with that stretch thread, with the EloFlex thread. Just thread the needle with your eyeballs instead of with the automatic needle threader, and then you won't risk bending the wire on your fancy sewing machine. But that is the only problem that I've had with this machine in the past year, and let me tell you, I have put a lot of hours of sewing on this machine, both regular sewing and embroidery, and it has just run like a dream. So love it. I will put links below to my unboxing video in case you want to see my excitement after I carried the huge boxes up the stairs to my studio and was all huffy puffy and opening it, so excited. I'll put links to that video and also links to the shop, the online shop that I purchased it from, and also it's available on Amazon too. Only both the shop and the Amazon link both have different bonus packages, so you can pick you know, if you want the embroidery hoop for quilting, which I got and is fabulous, or the other one comes with maybe some embroidery threads or something. So the bonus packages are different. So if you are in the market for a machine like this, you can definitely compare which the bonus packages that come with the machine, and pick the one that works best for you. So thanks so much for watching. I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel, and have a wonderful day.